Hi everyone! Today I'm going to share some of my top editing tips with you. These are things that really personally work well for me as a discovery writer that likes to fast draft. I usually end up doing several rounds of self-editing because my first drafts are rough. I'm going to note these are things I've learned between my first and second book. So on my first pass, one thing I like to do is use the comments feature in Word Doc or Google Doc, depending on what I'm using, to track plot points that I want to go over later. I also will make little changes for inconsistencies that I notice, especially if these are things that take like a maximum of 1 minute. If I know that they're going to take longer than that, I will highlight them, put a comment, and move on. Now, the second thing I do is I do a second pass, where I do what I like to call reverse outlining, because I don't usually have an outline, or I end up going pretty far away from this outline when I do write the book. So when I do this reverse outlining, I write down everything that's happened in the story on a separate sheet of paper. So I might do this on a physical paper, or I might do this on like a Word doc. And what I write down is usually, this happened, this is the page range, this is the time frame in which it happened, and this is why it's happening. And I will try to do this for both my main plots and my subplots, just to make sure that there aren't any like discrepancies or any sort of inconsistencies. This makes it a lot easier when I'm going through later to apply developmental changes. So that way I'm not going like, wait, I think this is inconsistent, but I'm not sure. So by writing everything down, it just makes it very clear, like, oh, okay, this is consistent, but this isn't, and I might need to explain it or remove it, depending on the situation. Third tip, and I can't take credit for this one because this was my brother's advice, read your story out loud. This can really help, especially with issues of weird, clunky dialogue and sentences that just don't flow. My next one is have your story read to you. Doesn't need to be by a human person. It could be by Google Translate if you don't have any software for this, or you could use, there's a function, a setting on your computer that will allow you to have everything read to you, including the things that are in your Word document. So you could do that. If you'd like to know about that, let me know. I will post either a tutorial video on how to do that, or find a video and put it in the comments. If you would like to hear your story read to you, you could go to your computer and look at the settings for change text to speech settings. If you change the settings there, you could actually have your story read to you if you don't want to use the little Google Translate hack. Next thing, have someone else read the story. This is kind of a give me one. I know a lot of people will have beta readers. At the minimum, I would say at least having a couple of editors. And if you don't have a lot of money for an editor, maybe some writing software like Pro Writing Aid, and having a couple people that you know read over it. You want to have someone else read it. You don't want to create your story in a vacuum because you will probably get some not so nice reviews. And 6, this is more about taking feedback. This is something that you might struggle with, especially if you feel really close to your characters. When you get feedback, one thing that really helps for me, because I'm thin-skinned, is write down the pros and the cons. Then take a deep breath, come back to it. If you feel upset about the feedback, maybe try writing down why you're feeling upset and then come back to it. Please, please, please don't get mad at the person giving you feedback. They are trying, in most cases, they are trying to help you. And you definitely don't want to launch into an argument with that person, especially if it's something they posted online. 7, if something isn't clear to your readers, but you think it's clear, take a step back and think about why. Try reading through that passage again. Maybe now that you're less attached to it, you might be able to see that difference once you've taken a couple steps back. And the last thing I'm going to mention, This has not personally worked for me, but I know it works for a lot of other people. I don't like to read like this. Printing out your book on printer paper and reading and making changes that way. I have a thing about the texture of printer paper. It really bothers me, so this isn't something I do unless I have a way to make it look like a fully done published book to read it, but that would be a lot more steps. So this is one that you can try, but it hasn't personally worked for me. That is all I have for you today. If you liked this video, go ahead and click that like button and you can subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this. Bye! I am going to just write down or tell you things that